rest for 45 minutes. Anyway, quickly moving on this afternoon. Item 1 is apologies for absence. Dan, do we have any?
Thank you, Chair. No apologies for absence.
Blimey, a full house. So, declarations of interest on any items on the agenda today? Or Councillor Tyler, I'm being told. Doesn't appear to be here. He was one of our advisors, of course. That's from our whip, so we can make a note of that. If he turns up, we'll mark him as present and correct. So no declarations of interest. Nope, good, thank you very much. So we'll go to the minutes of the Cabinet meeting held on the 18th of September. I believe Councillor Ayres may have a comment on these.
I decided in the end that I didn't. Sorry.
Oh, that was just a little tease from you, was it? And she thought better of it and decided not to. Okay, great. So other than that, are the minutes agreed, everybody? Agreed, lovely. Okay, Dan, you make a note of that. That's all fine. Minutes are agreed. So, I'm not aware of any petitions, unless you are, Dan?
Thank you. No petitions.
No petitions at item 4 today. That'd be marvellous. Moving swiftly on. So, strategic decisions. Item 5, which is sales, fees and charges review, pages 15 to 24. And Councillor Coles will introduce this, and I believe Emma is attending today from the finance team to talk about any of the things that might come up from the paper today. Andy.
Thank you, Leader. This report is with us today to recommend proposed changes to some of the Council's sales, fees and charges. However, before I go further, Cabinet, I propose an amendment to the report. If I can take you to page 17, Table 1, Item 1, it is proposed to increase the charge on additional garden waste bins from £25 to £50 per annum from the 1st of January 2024. Our amendment is to increase the charge by just £5, from £25 to £30. The same sum proposed to increase charges for the garden waste bin by £5, from £50 to £55 in the following year. This represents a reduction of income to the bottom line of £109,000. We should not support the disproportionate rise at this time of financial challenge for our residents, and hence that's why we're bringing forward this amendment. However, apart from this one amendment reducing one increase in fees, this report comes to Cabinet to assist the Council to beat the financial challenges we still faced. We have made huge leaps over the last 18 months, but in future years we do still have budget gaps. Inflation remaining high is one of the key drivers for this. This affects the cost of providing services, and it also causes us to re-examine the amount we charge for our own services. Council officers have worked collaboratively with Lion Local Government and external specialists to review all of our sales, fees and charges. They've conducted a comprehensive review, which has been informed by benchmarking charges in comparison to other local authorities. The individual proposals include changes to charges in parking services, waste services, as I've mentioned with our amendment, and the crematorium and bereavement services. The proposals outlined within the report were considered through the Growth, Resources and Communities Scrutiny Committee. Although they had a healthy debate, they didn't suggest the changes that we're suggesting today. I recognise this is a difficult decision for us to make to increase charges. However, it's a vital one to ensure the Council covers the cost of these services and is able to set a balanced budget. Therefore, I ask members to agree with both recommendations and the amendment as set out within the report. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. Any questions from anybody? Ooh, Adesua.
Thank you, Leader. Just to clarify that in relation to the proposed amendment, we'll just need to have a seconder to that before.
Sure. I think Councillor Simons was due to it.
Yeah, happy to second, thank you.
Okay. Are there any questions? No, that's good. I'll just make one comment about the sales fees and charges, as Councillor Coles has outlined. It's vital. It's not really something we like to do, but it is vital that we keep pace with inflation and also track in terms of benchmarking with other local authorities. But within the paper and the budget setting, there are, shall we say, other opportunities, particularly in parking. of which we've made clear to the finance team that we'd like to see them implemented, that will cover adequately and more than the shortfall of the 100 and what thousand, was it, Andy? 109,000, that we believe we can make that up by increasing parking charges elsewhere. That option already exists within the paper or within the provisions of the sales fees and charging policy. So that's to be clear. So we won't be losing money as is expected. That's what officers are working on those alternatives. So other than that, including the amendment, the recommendations are that we endorse the increase in fees and charges outlined in the report, including now the amended motion or recommendation, and recommends to full council the approval of increases to fees and charges as set out in the report. Are we all agreed on that? Agreed. That's unanimous, Dan. Thank you very much. Okay. So you will make a note in the revised recommendations where it says none at the moment. Indeed, there are. So we'll move on to item number 6, which is the Peterborough Integrated Renewals Infrastructure, 25 to 46. It's agenda item number 6. And I believe Councillor Simons is introducing this.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Happy to introduce. Peterborough Integrated Renewable Infrastructure, known as PIRI, is an initiative programme that will play a critical role in the city's decarbonisation journey. The programme seeks to pipe electricity and waste heat produced at the Council's energy recovery facility in Fengate to specific parts of the city, providing locally sourced renewable energy to business en route. They can then use this power and heat their operations and also fuel their electric fuel fleet. Whilst we are not at the construction stage yet, we have already secured a grant for just over 900,000 for the commercialisation phase of this project and 13.5 million towards the delivery of this project from Government's Green Heat Network Fund. This report is asking for the Cabinet to approve the next stage of the project to determine which commercialisation pathway we should pursue. Thank you.
Great. Questions, please, anybody? So, Councillor Ayres and Councillor Coles and Councillor Sereste in that order.
Thank you. Thank you. I wondered if somebody could tell me what sort of legal entity we're going to have. I know there's talk of a partnership, but of course a partnership can be many different sorts of entities, and it would be helpful if people could understand what you mean by that.
I was looking for somebody on the front here, but Charlotte, apparently you might have an answer as well. Let's hope we get several.
Yeah, that's right. So thank you. Yeah, I'm here sitting at the back to take any questions on this today. And also my colleague Vimal is here as well. Vimal's working with us as a partner on the project to deliver some of the more technical aspects. So I'll actually hand over for Vimal for answering this particular question, if that's okay.
Good afternoon all. In short, the legal entity is yet to be determined. It'll be an outcome from the commercialization and procurement process that we're due to commence.
Can you tell us what it could be? I think most people out there won't really understand, because a partnership ordinarily is not a legal entity in itself. So if you could give us some idea what could be happening.
We'd seek to typically create a special purpose vehicle. The governance and legislation and how that SPV would operate is yet to be determined and would be the outcome of discussions with the development partner. In doing so, we'd need to ensure that the council's vision and requirements were embedded within that SPV. We'd also need to consider the council's role up front and ongoing in terms of what it would like to participate in, and rather let the development partner procure as well. So it's to be determined.
Could I just...
I was just going to bring you in. Have you finished there, Lynn? No, we'll come back to you then. So, Adesua, do you want to come back on this point?
I was just going to say, I mean, at this stage, It's a partnership arrangement, and there are many types of partnership arrangements. Before any decision is made on the final version, details will be provided to councillors for a decision. So there will be certain considerations that are taken into account, but certainly members will have oversight and decision-making power as to which option that the council takes forward. So
Great.
more details will come forward.
Thanks. Lynn, do you have another point? Oh, go on then.
And then again, on the risk register, I noticed there's talk of proposed customers of the scheme dropping out potentially during commercialisation, which is worrying in itself, resulting in the loss of heat demand and potentially loss of electricity demand. Can you tell us what you're doing about that in order to prevent that?
Yes, absolutely we can. So we have been working with various different businesses throughout the footprint of the project since its inception. So primarily at the moment, these are based around the Fengate area of Peterborough and some in the city centre. And what we've done so far is worked with partners to understand what their energy demands are. So how much heat they typically require, how much electricity they require, and also, for example, if they have any renewable energy generation that they would potentially be able to connect into our infrastructure, in addition to the energy sources that will come forward as part of the project. So that dialogue has been ongoing for a long time. We've recently held a networking event with some of the key, what we would call off-takers or customers for the project, to really check that they're still part of this and want to be a part of it, and they very much do. Now, that will be a carefully managed process as we go through, because we all know things change, so the project needs to be adaptable in order to be able to cope with that growing demand and the scaling up of business across the city as well. But throughout this next phase of the project, we will be developing draft terms with these companies so that they can be very clear about what will be required of them and vice versa, so that by the time in roughly a year's time from now, when we aim to come back to Cabinet to seek consent, hopefully to move towards the construction phase, we would have much more concise terms and conditions in place that businesses will be very aware of and ready to sign on the dotted line should the decision to proceed be taken.
Excellent, because it is such an innovative scheme and such an important one, I think, for the city to carry forward, and you've done it so quickly, actually. I think it's very good. But the other thing that did concern me was the question about political changes impacting financial viability of the project, etc. And I wondered whether you were referring to national or local politics.
In here, we're particularly referring to national politics more than anything at this stage, because the national government have the ability to make changes to the legislation that could affect how this project is delivered. As we've detailed in here, we really are mitigating this by making sure the project is surrounded by the right experts. That means we'll be very much kept abreast of any potential change, and that we can work out what the mitigation would need to be, and make sure that obviously the relevant flags are raised at the right point should we think a suitable mitigation activity isn't viable. But at the moment, we don't foresee any changes that will impact the project.
Thank you.
Andy.
Thank you, Leader. I think I'd like to make a bit of a statement, really, which is this is how we should be doing environmental work in this city. It's not about stopping people doing things. It's not about preventing people from enjoying their normal ways of getting around. It's about using modern technology to deliver a really good green project. And we're using waste heat and a distribution system to provide electricity, a transport scheme, and a heat scheme. And it's a fantastic start to it, but we're only at the very beginning of this. And I'm just wondering, you'll know I've talked to you before about someone who would like to get involved, who has an idea. How wide do you think can you go with this in terms of developing things across the whole city? Because at the moment we're stuck really to mainly Fengate and leading into the city centre.
Thank you for the question. Yeah, the whole project of Piri actually has around 7 phases of construction. We're focusing on the first 2 at the moment, which is Fengate and into the city centre to power buildings such as this one, for example. The other phases do take us further north into the city and also potentially south of the river as well. Now, they will very much depend on the details of the number of off-takers that we've got en route, making sure we can plug insufficient additional energy supplies into the network, for example, and various other factors along those lines. But it doesn't stop us doing something similar in another part of the city as well. The council, as you'll recall, have a local area energy plan now, which looks at how we might go about delivering the net carbon decarbonisation journey. And that suggests there are other areas of the city where a district heat network, for example, could prove to be a viable intervention, but of course many other things will prove to be viable as well. So this is about a blended approach of taking forward different projects at different stages in order to best deliver on that decarbonisation journey.
Thank you. Please.
Thank you, Leader. I mean, as all of you know, it was in my portfolio when we kicked this off originally, so I'm very supportive of the scheme. I'd like to congratulate the officers and people that have been working on it to bring it to the point where it is today, and my colleague, Councillor Simons, who's been overseeing it. For me, this is probably the most important project that we've ever had in the city, because it's actually about the future, and it's about delivering the future in a proper way, in a way that is sustainable. I just want to make sure that whatever is built is expandable so that you can add to it as we go around. And I think one of the things that the project teams need to absolutely look at is whatever they decide as the route, anything that's on that route where you can add photovoltaics or take heat from, we need to be planning to actually do it. This is not something that we should just, oh, well, we'll go down that road there, willy-nilly. I think there needs to be a plan that says, if this route goes past our Aragon depot, how much power can we get off the roof of the Aragon depot? And the answer is probably a lot. So, you know, these are the things that need to be taken into consideration as we're doing this. And it's the sort of thing that will convince the government to fund it. If we can show them that not only are we thinking about what we do and how we do it, but we're thinking about the future, that's going to instill the confidence in the people that make the right decisions to agree that actually this city is worth supporting and worth promoting this project in. So 100% support to everybody that's doing it. Well done. And but just remember, this is something really important, not necessarily for my future, but our children and our grandchildren. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marco. Ishi, please. Then Steve.
Thank you. It's going on from Marco's comments, actually. It's just say that there is a lot of industry within Fengate where there's large warehouses where, you know, the roof spaces could be utilised for solar. And there's also many producers of waste heat energy from the cold rooms, etc., around there, from the cold storage, etc., which is just wasted at the moment. So it was just to make sure that we can tap into that in the future, and you know, to ensure that that's allowed and able.
Thank you for that question. Yeah, absolutely. This is a really this is the critical part at this stage of the project in order to make sure we fully consider those opportunities, but also make sure that the project is adaptable, because just because somebody's not got solar now on their roof, it doesn't mean they wouldn't invest in that in the future. So it's a careful balance, of course. We can't build for an infinite amount of energy to be piped through this system. We'll have to take a decision at the right point to understand the demand and understand the amount of energy that could be generated and supplied through this network. So some critical decisions will need to be made at key points, but very much at this part of the project where we're really carefully engaging with the various stakeholders and understanding what their potential plans might be, we can start to use that in our forecasting of the project as we get through the process that we'll be working through at the moment, which is very much around finalising that full business case for the project. So as I've already touched on, roughly in a year's time, we'll be able to understand that full level of detail and be able to make a really informed decision on the next steps.
Thank you. Finally, at the moment, I haven't seen anybody else, is Steve Allen.
Thank you, Leader. And I'm picking up really on both the questions posed by Councillor Soreste and Councillor Hussain, and also the fact that we are looking and rolling it out on a wider area. So forgive me for what I guess is a layman question. As we spread this feed further into our city, How do we boost it? Do we need to boost it, or do we have booster stations? I just need a bit of technical information to get my head around how we expand what is an excellent project. Thank you.
Yeah, so that's something obviously... Sorry. Thought you were ready for me to answer and then I wasn't quite sure.
Marco is chuckling.
Okay, so in terms of how we expand to the other stages of the project and whether we've got enough energy to supply, that all obviously comes down to the demand of the required... the demand that the businesses on the initial footprint require and how much energy capacity that gives us, and then how many additional energy generating supplies that we can bring on. It's a bit too early to say quite now how that will all play out, but what we also need to do is balance that with other opportunities and ways of powering and providing a decarbonisation pathway for wider areas of the city. So it will be a balance, but it will be very carefully considered to make sure that what we don't want to do, of course, is overcommit that energy supply. Of course, the last thing anybody would want is to commit to be a customer of Piri, to have any risk with that provision of electricity and heat supply. So it's a really carefully modelled scenario that we'll understand as the project continues to develop. But you'll see all of that detail in the full business case, which we're moving into the development of.
Great. I didn't see any more questions from anybody around the room, so I think I'll just add a comment that this is a great initiative that the Cabinet should be congratulated on, those members leading in it, and of course the officer team. It shows just another Conservative-led project which will come to fruition and will serve well for many generations to come in the future. So I think we're all behind this. We can see the benefits of this for the city and our residents, and let's get it done as quickly as we can. So the recommendations, folks, there are two of them. Approve the route to delivery of the Piri project via a partnership arrangement as set out in section 4.2.2 of this report, including the procurement of a partner, and authorise the Interim Director of Legal and Governance to enter into any legal arrangements or documentation on behalf of the Council to facilitate the decision in recommendation 1. Are we all agreed on that? That's unanimous. Again, we're rolling today, folks. So moving swiftly on to item 7, a story that's attracted much press attention lately, so I'm sure that we'll set some of those rumours straight today. It's the disposal of Dickens Street and Wellington Street car parks, pages 47 to 52, agenda item number 7. And I'll just remind you, folks, if you wish to discuss any aspects of the exempt appendix, we will need to move in private session, and members of the public and press will have to leave. So I think we've been through it enough, and hopefully we won't have to do that. But Adrian Chapman is here to introduce, and indeed it's Councillor Coles again on this to introduce the item.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, the Dickens Street and Wellington Street car parks are located at a key gateway to the city centre. It's an area that is currently spatially incoherent and environmentally unattractive, or ugly, and needs developing. The area is in need of a comprehensive regeneration scheme that can deliver both an improved environment alongside social benefits for new and existing communities, as well as a new gateway into the city centre. The council disposed of a portion of land within the demise of the car parks, but development was not realised. The current owner of that site has now formed a consortium and has come forward with a new proposal for a comprehensive regeneration scheme for the area. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much. Any questions from anybody on this? Steve Allen.
I thought actually I might come in at the end of the debate, but I'm kicking it off, so excuse me for a question that may be developed as we go forward. I'm really, really supportive of the improvement to this gateway to our city. It's long overdue. The area is moribund, it's untidy, and it doesn't speak well of our city. I am, however, picking up on public comment, and indeed, as you all realise, comments that I've raised in Cabinet for probably the last 6 months when this has been discussed, and that is the loss of car parking in that area of Peterborough, specifically to the east of the city, where we have a nighttime economy and we have a theatre, hopefully a thriving theatre. We lost the Market car park, we're now going to lose these 2 car parks. Now then, that's not the end of the world, providing they are re-provisioned. And I think that we must let the public know that whilst we are losing these 2 car parks, plans are in train to replace them, either by adding to the size of current car parks, decking them, or indeed finding new locations. But that must be taken forward at the same time so the public are aware that we're not depriving them of much needed car park space in that area of the city. Thank you.
Anybody else? Steve is echoing a statement that I released last week, following concerns and often, conspiracy theorists, shall we call them, particularly on social media, that, see one thing and actually think they've seen something else, or that 2 and 2 make 5. It's very, very simple. The East Ward area of the city has been much neglected in that gateway, and Steve is absolutely right. It does need something doing to it. The gasworks site had lain derelict for many, many years, and the car park, whilst great for a Sunday market, we're even re-provisioning that in terms of elsewhere. But let me be clear again that we need to put car parking in the right areas where people need to use it in the city. So these car parks have been proven to be the least productive in terms of the revenue we can generate from them, but also, more importantly, the regeneration of that area. So we have a number of car parks that are already being considered for improvement. That could be the decking of them, or the doubling or increasing in size, and also consideration to locations where the public need car parking. We're also talking to the private operators such as Queensgate and others in order to make their car parks more accessible. But folks, at the same time, we have to balance our air quality and try to drive down car use. Even though I'm a pro-car fan, I believe that people should be able to drive and commute how they want to commute, but we're also socially aware of air quality. And I don't want to, let's have more electric vehicles, and they still need somewhere to park. So Steve's right, we need the parking in the right places. So I think this administration is committed to doing what it can to improve the quality of life and commutable routes for the residents that live here, and at the same time promoting walking and cycling and all those things if you want to do them. But the car ain't going away, and they need somewhere to park, and we need better transport. But we'll save that one for another day. So we'll move to the recommendations, if that's okay, folks, which is page 47. There are 2 of them. Approve the disposal of the former Dickens Street and Wellington Street car parks. Delegates authority to the Executive Director for Corporate Services in consultation with the Executive Director for Place and Economy, the Interim Director of Legal and Governance, and the Cabinet Member for Legal, Finance and Corporate Services to take all necessary steps to facilitate the decision in Recommendation 1, including completing due diligence, approving the final terms of disposal, and entering into any necessary arrangements. Before we vote on that, one thing I forgot. People that are displaced from those car parks, we are working on solutions to relocate them. So let's be perfectly clear about that also. We're not ignoring them. We are aware. It just takes time, but it's not going to happen tomorrow. Are we all agreed? Agreed. There we go, folks. So thank you very much for that. We didn't need to get into that at all. I think we're more or less there, aren't we, Dan? That's a quick and brief Cabinet meeting today, thankfully. But we seem to get through the business, and I will take our leave of you at just after 4:30. We've done that quite quickly. Thank you all very much for coming to the meeting today, and we'll see you again another time. Thank you.